hurricane went through here, did a lot of damage. These areas are not used to hurricanes. Oh, okay. This makes sense. They bus us down to the fort. I was wondering why the visitor center was so far away. I'll come back to the visitor center at the end of the video. The most important takeaway now is to understand the fortress as a grounds up recreation.
Ladies and gentlemen, the bus to the fortress will be leaving momentarily. Mesdames et messieurs, l'autobus va partir pour la forteresse dans quelques minutes.
So I'll give you a little information about what this house is. Est-ce qu'il y a des gens ici qui veulent les infos en français? You're standing in a fishing proprietor's home, so this means that this is a fishing business that we're standing in, that they lived in. This is an example of one of about 100 to 150 fishing properties like this that were all around the whole harbor here. So people didn't just live inside the fortress, but also outside the walls as well. And this actually predates the construction of the fortress. So this all started as a fishing settlement in the year 1713. Before that, the French were fishing in Newfoundland, but they lost access to Newfoundland with the Treaty of Utrecht, signed with the British in 1713. So they moved their fishing settlement from Newfoundland over here to Cape Breton and started a new colony called Ile Royale, or Royal Island. They decided to name it Louisbourg and make this the capital because it was named after King Louis XIV, who was the King of France when it was founded. 2 years later, he passed away, and the next king was named Louis anyway, so we just kept the name Louisbourg. So the actual fortress itself started being built in the 1720s to protect the fishing grounds here. So the reason why the fish was so important to the French in the 1700s is because the population of France was about 19 million, mostly all Catholics. And Catholics at this time in France did not eat meat for about 145 days of the year. So they weren't eating meat on Friday or Saturday or during Lent, which is 40 days, and then any day that was dedicated to a saint, and there were a lot of days like that. So they ate codfish on those days instead of meat. And a codfish, when it was caught here, was salted and dried, and then it was good to eat up to 2 years later. So that's a big deal in the 1700s. We don't have fridges, so it's really a big deal to have a food that can preserve for so long like that and feed so many millions of people. So on average, in the 1700s, we're exporting about 15 million pounds a year from this harbor of codfish back to France to feed the population there. So everything that you're going to see in the fortress was financed with the codfish. And if it wasn't for the fish, there wouldn't be a fortress here. So that's how it all started out, just as a fishing settlement. So as I was saying, this house is an example of one of 100 to 150 fishing properties that were all around the harbor here. And this house was owned by an interesting couple because so we have Jeanne de Galberet, so she's 69 when she gets married for the third time. And so she already had this property from her previous marriage, one of her previous marriages, so she was on her third marriage when she was 69. So she already has a fishing business, it's bringing a lot of money, making a lot of money here, but she needs a man to help her run it. So at age 69, she gets married to Georges Desroches, who's only 28. She never had kids, and they obviously weren't having kids, so they used that side of the house as a tavern for fishermen that came and fished for them. So they employed seasonal fishermen who would come over from France, and a lot of them were from the Basque country. Not sure if you've ever heard of the Basque country, but in the south of France and north of Spain, it's called the Basque country, and they have a different language and culture. So Jeanne de Galberet, the owner of this house, was Basque herself as well, but most of the fishermen were Basque too. So the second most spoken language in Louisbourg was Basque during the period. So the seasonal fishermen that they would employ would come over and they would work here for 4 months in the summertime. So they had 6 to 8 cabins in the backyard there. So the fishermen would sleep in those cabins and they would eat and drink here in the tavern, and then at the end of the 4-month season, that would all just be deducted from their wages. So that was like a credit system that they were operating, and that's why it was also important for her to marry somebody who could read and write, which he could. So they both brought something mutual to the marriage. In the 1700s, most marriages were just basically a financial contract. Love was not a big reason for people getting married. It did happen, but it was more common for it to be a financial, basically. Not saying they didn't love each other though, that's possible, but she did end up living to be 85 as well, which was very, very rare at the time. So it shows that she was a very resilient woman, definitely. So that's the history of the house, and just keep in mind when you're in the fortress looking around that it all started out as a fishing settlement. Everything was financed with the fish, so if it wasn't for the codfish, there would never be a fortress here. So I hope that gives you some context of why the fortress is here and how it all started out. So feel free to look around the house, let me know if you have any questions. And you can go out either door. You're going to go up that way to the gate, and then a soldier will hopefully let you inside the fortress.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is a conical umbrella.
Alright, so use whatever flour you need, sort of like a, and you have to push
Oh, fancy. Been waiting the whole trip to see it puffing.
Alors, il est venu vérifier les choses, puis quand je regardais, il y a une maison qui était déjà bâtie. Les maisons, c'était du long quand même s'installer de France. Et il y a bâti la maison ici, dans le bas de France. Oh, ça va? Comment c'était une musée là?
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Doing excellent. Thank you. Well, the wet weather has kept a lot of people away, so I get to enjoy this in relative peace and quiet. There's still quite a few people here. That place is huge. Let's go to this one first. Hello.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know. I was like, this is my day off this week at work, so I was like, my husband at work, so this is well.
Do not want to sleep on you.
Uh-oh.
Back, so you can see. Yeah, it's not like the actual. No.
Clock works. That room was the armory. Hello.
Hello.
Howdy.
This is the governor's residence here.
Oh,
Take a look
it
inside.
must be fancy then.
It is quite fancy.
The governor's is downstairs or upstairs?
Upstairs, so
We'll
it's
go
kind
there.
of like a maze.
Okay.
This primarily is an archaeological exhibition. But when you get through that, you'll see a big staircase, and around that are the governor's suites.
And that's upstairs?
Mhm.
All right, I'll try that first then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
At the end, you can come back downstairs and see all the officers' quarters.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Hello. Oh, hello again. You get to move around a bit, huh?
So all the objects you see here were purchased in France, and then they were brought over here during the reconstruction.
So this was, so they're period pieces, not necessarily from here.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So a lot of the larger ones are still used to furnish the different buildings on site. They're still switched out. And a lot of the smaller ones that we can't necessarily be handling or whatever are used more to make reproductions or for research and things like that.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So in essence, the master copy is available. Oh, that's cool. The next 5 minutes of the video will be back at the King's Bastion, where they have an exhibit on the remarkable reconstruction of this fortress.
Yeah, there it is. The justification of all historical study must ultimately be that it enhances our self-consciousness and enables us to see ourselves in perspective and helps us towards that greater freedom which comes from self-knowledge.
Oh, Keith Thomas is a quote.
A rare sign of a Keith saying something smart.
My dad would do it.
I returned to the visitor center, and the next 4 minutes of the video will cover the history of the fortress and the conflicts between the British and the French.
Ladies and gentlemen, the bus to the fortress will be leaving momentarily. Mesdames et messieurs, l'autobus va partir pour la forteresse dans quelques minutes.